right, this should be a fun one. Why am I doing this again? Anyways, as you all can tell, because I did not do the normal intro, we are in for a different experience today. I want to talk about alpha males, the manosphere, and what I think they get wrong about dominance and submission. Because I have recently been doing some research into what people find when they're looking for dominance and submission on social media platforms. And on YouTube, it turns out if you look for just like dominance, submission, dominant man, submissive woman, you get pages of results of podcast clips and videos and responses and reactions of people either saying something about like, oh, you should submit to the will of God and a little bit more of a religious thing, or you get people saying essentially alpha males are dominant men and women should submit to alpha males as like a biological imperative. This is how women should be. This is what they should do. This is like their biological programming and they're fighting it because of feminism. And I obviously don't necessarily agree with that. And I found, I think, the perfect clip to really just sum up a lot of my thoughts about this, and just it gives a really good, clear example of how these conversations normally go. And so I'm gonna play it for you all, we're going to react to it, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to process what's being said. So before we get into the actual video, I want to talk about who the characters are in this, because, just apropos of nothing, this video does include Andrew Tate, who you may know from being very much in the news recently for certain things that may have been crimes that he did. And so he's in this. And if you don't know who Andrew Tate is, where have you been on the internet for the last 6 months? I would love to know. Can I get tickets? But Andrew Tate I've known about for probably since this past spring or summer, and he has exploded in popularity because of a program he was running. I broke down his whole rise to fame in a live stream he did recently, and there are tons of great videos about him, who he is, what he believes. But for the sake of this video, just know that Andrew Tate is an avowed misogynist who thinks that women are stupid and incapable and can't drive and should stay at home and are hypergamous and can't be trusted and are totally ruled by their emotions.
What about, have you ever dated a girl?
No, because men are women, but better.
Would you ever date a girl?
No!
Never.
Bro. No!
That is Andrew Tate in a nutshell as far as those beliefs are concerned. The other members of this podcast setup that we're going to react to, I am not sure who these other women are. As far as I can tell, for podcasts like this, their technique is to find either random women on Instagram, people hanging around in Miami, inviting them on this show, and then getting as many women as possible into one room so they can either agree with the men or fight each other and then look emotional the way that women are supposedly supposed to be emotional, uncontrollable.
Like, this is like your bitch. I don't know if she's sucking your dick or some shit. And she's lit right now.
Okay.
It seems to serve their biases to pit 10 women against each other in one podcast format. That's not totally what's happening in this video, but it's like, I think part of why this is happening. And also, the main person in this who is the host, I believe, is someone named Just Pearly Things, who Chad recently did a video about. It's really good. Check it out down below. And Pearly, my girl, if you're watching this, hi, hello, I will not talk about you. I'm sure if you were sent this and your little minions are like, oh my god, look at what this feminist said, she's so stupid, you're gonna want to react to this, and just, you know, I would appreciate a little thank you in the comment below for the free views and the good AdSense, and, you know, I just hope you're doing well, I guess. I will not say anything bad towards you personally, but I will not be acknowledging you beyond this little bit right here. So let's go ahead and get into watching this and just mentally prepare yourselves, because it starts out hot.
Say about, let me put, for instance, there's an artist that I like. My man likes it too. COVID had just sort of like finished. I got 2 free tickets to go to go. My man said to me, you're not going. What would you do?
I'm going.
What would you do?
What? You can't tell me what to do.
Why am I not going?
It doesn't matter. He said to you, you're not
It does matter
going.
because that's just illogical submission.
I know.
Why
That
tell me why I
doesn't
can't
make
go?
sense.
then?
No, but the whole point is you pick someone that you respect enough to trust his judgment, even when you disagree. That's the whole point.
Okay, there's already like a lot going on here, but let's like break down what happened. I believe what she said, and because this involves so many people, I may not be following along entirely, but I believe what she said is that she got free tickets to an artist that she likes, and her spouse or her man told her she wasn't allowed to go. Now, originally when I saw this, I thought she had said that he got free tickets and just didn't want her to go with him. And this is a very different scenario because now we are talking about a man dictating what another woman does with her possessions, like a thing that she owns. And of course the response to this is, well, if you're truly submitting to him, you would just do whatever he says because you trust him, right? You trust him enough to sleep with him. Why won't you let him dictate what he does with your property? As though these two things are entirely equivalent. And we'll talk about this more as we go along in this video, but I will say that it makes sense to question, okay, like, why are you doing what you're doing? And a man shouldn't be afraid, a person shouldn't be afraid of getting a question about why they want something. You should be confident enough as a dominant person to explain your decision making so your consensual follower can follow along with your logic for what you're doing on the most base, most charitable level. However, we are talking about him telling her what to do with her possessions and things that are hers, right? And like, let's say I had a dominant partner at home, right? And I bought some bananas for myself at the store, as I like to do, because bananas are my favorite fruit to eat or whatever. And I like bananas. I got like a whole bunch of them. They're super great. They're like that perfect level of banana doneness and ripeness. And then when I get home, I put the bananas on the counter, I go off to do some work or whatever, and I come back and my dominant has thrown the bananas in the trash can and has said, you can't eat bananas. It would be fair to ask a question like, why? Like, why can't I eat bananas? We might have negotiated to include dietary things as part of our submissive dominant relationship, but if that's a new thing he's currently adding in that we haven't talked about previously, it's fair for me to ask a question about why is that happening and go from there, right? Like, it's not being submissive, it's just asking a question? Like, the blind obedience and submission are not the same thing, as we will discover as we go through this.
I want to find
See,
somebody
that I don't agree with. Just because you're in a relationship.
But why-
Guys, stop.
Can I ask you a question?
Wait. We need one at a time.
Why would you think it's something stupid or whatever? You trust the man enough to be with him. You trust the man enough to sleep with him. So why won't you trust his opinion? Why does he have to give that? If I say to my man, like I went in, if I say to my man, don't do this, the first thing is we're thinking, not she's telling me what to do. There must be a reason behind it why she's telling me not to do. Because she trusts me. I did not go. I had 2 free tickets. I did not go.
I'll tell you why. Wait. Auntie, you asked me a question. I'll tell you why. Because the same way a man wants that sort of validation, a woman wants assurance. Exactly. I don't want to just blindly do everything all the time, especially sometimes I'm thinking, okay, that's a good
Okay, so let's talk.
That's what submission is.
No, so let's make...
To be fair, I don't think anyone in this room knows what submission actually is. So, you're all, as far as I can tell, equally wrong on this front. But yeah, no, being a submissive does not mean blind obedience, especially to things you haven't talked about beforehand. In my world, in the BDSM world, we talk about things before we do them. We negotiate individual things as they come up if we haven't discussed them previously. That is how this works and how a healthy dynamic is maintained, because you don't necessarily know when you might run into a landmine, right? Like, you're going to have this process, like going back to the banana example, right? Like, food control might not have been something that was discussed ahead of time. And that might actually be really triggering for somebody with a history of an eating disorder, right? Like, that might be a not very good thing to try and exert dominance over. And when you do BDSM, you're most of the time, most people are doing what's called partial power exchange, where you are submitting to negotiated, agreed upon certain areas of the relationship at certain times, but not everything everywhere. Not all submission is 24/7 total power exchange, no questions asked. My dominant gets to do whatever he wants to with me, to my property, to anything and everything in my life, with me having no recourse for even questioning what it is that he's doing. That's not how this works. Like, some people do have relationships like that, but that is built up over time, not an inherent thing you always have to do because of the gender you are and what relationship you happen to have.
Let's make a point. Auntie made a really important point. Auntie made a really important point, because the point she's making is twofold, and it's extremely important, because a lot of women talk about being submissive, but they're submissive when it suits them. That's not submission. So she wanted to go to the concert. He said no. She trusts him as a man. She didn't go. Absolute respect for that. That's exactly what my woman would have done. Exactly the same thing. Women go, I'm submissive. You're submissive when he's buying you shit in bed and you're submissive. But the second he says something you don't like, you instantly turn off the submission and run your fucking mouth. That's not submissive. That's manipulation. That's bullshit. So that's the first thing. The second thing is responsibility and authority are linked. And as a man, if I'm going to be responsible for a woman, I need a degree of authority over her. This is the reality of it. If I'm going to be responsible for paying your bills, and responsible for your personal safety, and responsible for your personal development, and responsible for fixing the life fitting, and responsible for everything that I'm supposed to do as a man, I need a degree of authority to sometimes come along and say X, Y, Z and be obeyed.
Oh, pro-doms have entered the chat, everyone. Oh my god. Oh, I'm literally going to tear up because it's so funny to me. Like, I'm just picturing every pro-dom that I know that is a very alpha female in their logic, who has lots of men who do lots of things for her that have no authority whatsoever in her life. I know lots of pro-doms that have clients and submissives who pay for their rent, who pay off their student loans, who bought them a car, who bought them a work laptop. And that does not in any way necessitate that person having control or authority over the dominant person's life. Like, just because you bought them a laptop doesn't mean you get to spy on what they do, or just because you pay their rent doesn't mean that you get to stay in their bedroom whenever you feel like it. Gift giving or providing for someone should be something that you implicitly want to do, not because it's a tit for tat, well, I did this for you, so now you owe me this. Like, that's very transactional. You should be getting your own fulfillment from giving something to another person, right? Whether it be getting them new shoes or paying their rent or whatever it is. You should be doing that because you like it, because that in and of itself is its own reward, not because it creates a leverage point in the relationship where you get to say, because I bought you new shoes, you have to have sex with me whenever I want you to. Like, this is not how this works. We're not doing a barter system where because you buy me a lamp, you get to do whatever you want to my body. Like, that's not how it works. And you definitely do not need authority over someone's life just because you provide for them. Some people like it when those things go together because it feels more congruent to them, but other people enjoy it when they give things to people and get nothing in return. And there's nothing inherent in giving a gift that says, because I gave you this, you owe me this. It's not like, no. No. And providing for someone financially is also not an inherently dominant thing or an inherently masculine thing. Caregiving and providing is something that anyone of either or all genders can do, right? And it can be a dominant thing or a submissive thing depending on your mindset, depending upon your intention. Okay? All right, we're on the same page about that, right?
If I'm going to have a ship, if you have a ship, the reason the captain has to go down with the ship is because he is responsible for everything that happens on that ship. And because of that, he has authority. If he yells at the shipmates and they all ignore him, then he can't be considered responsible for the problems on the ship, which means he doesn't have to die with it. If you want a man invested in a relationship, he needs to be responsible for you, but he needs authority over you.
Last time I checked, heterosexual relationships were not the same thing as being in the Navy. I'm sorry, when did that happen? When did dating become joining the military? I was not aware that this happened.
And you know what? The smartest thing you can do as a woman is sit and go, you know what? Go into this concert. It's 2 hours. But this is going to piss him off, and it's going to be a splinter in his mind for years. Is this really worth it?
A fight about a concert will splinter in a man's mind and bother him for years. I'm sorry. I have a few questions about this. One, I don't think most women are making decisions based off of like, my man's gonna hold on to this for the rest of all of time, and so because of that, I should just go with what he wants so he doesn't hold it against me. That's not a healthy relationship. Ask any marriage counselor, ask any family therapist. Bringing up shit in fights that happened 2 to 3 years ago is not healthy. You should not be doing that. I have had exes before where we will be arguing about something else entirely, and then they will bring up something that happened 2 years ago that was supposedly forgiven. That is not healthy. That is not okay. And if you are the kind of person that holds on to every single thing your partner does that you personally don't like, I don't know if you're like emotionally stable enough to have a relationship with other people, especially when you take everything the other person does as a personal attack on you specifically, and not them having bodily autonomy to do what they want. And if everything they do that's not what you want them to do is an attack on you personally, you hold on to that. You gotta be a little bit more emotionally mature than that to handle being in a relationship. It's very funny because I think a lot of these guys talk about, well, facts don't care about your feelings, but then like they want to be able to make every decision in the relationship based off of their feeling that they should be given all of the authority, all of the respect in the relationship. And if they're not given that, they hold a complete meltdown and they have a tantrum, and then they hold on to it for forever. Like, you hurt me this one time and I'm not going to be able to let it go. That's not being emotionally well adjusted. That's your feelings dictating your reality and letting your feelings like poison you. Like, don't do that. Don't poison yourself. It's not good for your brain.
Now, I'm not saying let some man abuse you, let some man treat you like shit, but if you have a good man who's good to you 99% of the time and he comes along and he really cares about something, you should give him that grace and give him that, you know what, he's the man, he said it, boom, done. Because if something happened to you at that concert, if your bag was snatched, if you got fucking robbed, if someone tried to punch you, if someone grabbed you, who would you call?
Okay.
Help, police. Help me.
The police.
You call your man.
The police.
You call him.
Senor Andrew, Mr. Tate King, Master Supreme Leader of everything, the universe, the Matrix, and all of that. No, I just say this because it keeps him chilled. I'm going to make my point the right way. You're not.
But Tate, do you not think that it's not respecting?
Wait, guys,
Listen.
wait 1 second. You wanted to say something?
Just doing the most.
Of course, I have to do the most. This is the thing. What you don't understand is that as a lady, I am displaying to you that it's very easy to speak to a man like Andrew Tate, as long as you don't need to step on his toes and you respect the authority that he has. I'm not going to sit here and try and fight against a man that has done a lot more in my life, been in rooms that I haven't been in because he's Andrew Tate. I respect you, but I can still put my point across, okay? My point is... No, but there is a point, of course.
Look, can I just say something? When you say but after something, you just cancel everything you said before.
However, it's a point, it's an acknowledgement, and then comes the counter argument because I don't have to agree with things to speak.
Okay, what is he saying? Is he, first of all, does he just fantasize about like disasters happening? Is he like one of those like disaster preppers who's like, all right, I gotta be prepared for when like the terrorists attack at this concert? Like, is he just like one of those guys that always has like 4 guns on him because he's like constantly like, I'm gonna have to use them to take down a shooter at a mall? Like, is that his energy? It kind of gives me that energy. Like, yeah, if something really bad happened, that would be tragic. One, if it was me, I would deal with the on-site security because that's what they're trained and hired to do, and I wouldn't want my man to get arrested for assault because he took matters into his own hands and then like wrestled somebody to the ground and then punched someone in the face until they passed out. Like, I'm not interested in doing that. Like, there are security, there are trained staff there to deal with that. I will enlist their help. I don't necessarily need or want anyone else to get involved for your safety and for everyone else's safety, all right? It's just safer to let security deal with these things. But also, is he saying that men have a sixth sense, like, premonition thing for danger where, like, they just get spidey tingles about, like, oh, I just have a bad feeling about this concert. I just really think there might be a disaster and, like, you just shouldn't go. You don't have any more ability than anyone else unless you're, like, a top level security clearance for like an FBI group that watches terrorists. You do not know any more than anyone else about like how likely there is to be danger at a concert, enough to tell me not to go, and also to not be questioned about why. Because if your feeling is that like, well, I'm just worried because there was that attack last month and I just don't want you to go by yourself and it'd just be safer we stayed at home, like, can we get a DVD of the concert and watch that later? Then you can have a healthy conversation about what your anxieties are. Your anxieties should not be controlling the relationship, Mr. Facts don't care about your feelings. I thought you subscribed to that belief, but again, you are letting your feelings dictate the relationship because of your irrational fears.
Okay, so my point simply is, fine, I get that. But at the end of the day, the same way that we have evolved now, as a woman I have evolved, I would expect, and what I do want is not equality, is a certain level of respect, which means that if I am also somebody that is quite smart, somebody that can take care of themselves, I've done all of this for about 30 years of my life, you can't tell me just no. What the condition is, the condition is, instead of telling me no, give me the assurance as to why you said no, because actually I am agreeable when you make me feel assured that what you're doing makes me feel safe, actually, because what women are looking a lot for is stability, and stability comes from knowing that you can trust a man. I don't trust blindly.
It doesn't count if you're only agreeable when you feel like being agreeable.
Can I just say something?
Submission. I'm submissive.
You're only submissive when you're only submissive when you feel like being like when you feel like it's not submissive.
Can I just say something?
And like some people love giving explanations. Like if the man is supposed to be the leader in this relationship and he's supposed to be this alpha male who knows everything and is better than women and always makes the right choices and is totally self-assured in everything, he should, as a leader, I think, maybe also want to be a teacher, that's the framework we're going with, and be willing and happy to explain, this is why I came to this decision, this is why I think it's the best choice, without it being seen as a threat. Because to me, this very much comes across like any questioning, anything is a threat, and it comes across as very insecure. If you are a genuinely dominant person in a consensual, dominant, submissive relationship, you should be able to explain your decision making so that way your partner understands you better. This can be a learning opportunity where the submissive partner can go, oh, this is why you're choosing this. Okay, I get this. This informs my worldview in this way. Or if your submissive has more information, you can have a conversation about that, right? And it should be a back and forth where you can almost sort of see, and not everyone thinks this way, but you can also sort of see your submissive partner as a resource, as a thing you can use that is greater than yourself. And because, we're talking about heterosexual relationships here and Andrew Tate, and so he thinks that women have nothing to offer and no insight whatsoever, and they're liars and too emotional. But theoretically, if we don't agree with that, other people in a relationship can also have their own perspective and information and insight to give that can give you a richer and fuller picture and a better idea of what to do. But Andrew Tate doesn't believe in that because Andrew Tate literally thinks that he never makes mistakes, and because he's conscious of every choice that he makes, he never makes a wrong choice. So he doesn't ever need input from anyone else, but I'm sorry, the plebs among us generally need insight from other people to be able to make a richer decision when it comes to things that involve other people. And also, I'm just like really tired of this whole like, it's not real submission if you blah blah blah. Like, okay, just to lay it out for everyone because I don't think I've done that yet. Submission comes in so many shapes and sizes. You can submit to one thing in the bedroom and not submit outside of that. And you can submit to absolutely everything. And it's this weird thing that I see people like this bring up where they think because someone acts submissive in the bedroom or bottoms in the bedroom that they must submit to all things everywhere outside of that in real life, otherwise they're liars. And it's like, no, the context is different. The thing they are submitting to is different. Different things are different. You can want to submit in the bedroom and not want to submit financially or emotionally or whatever. Like, you can set up boundaries around this is what I want to submit to and this is what I don't want to submit to. And that's all fair. That's all a normal part, at least in BDSM, of what submission looks like. Is there is so much variation in what people submit to, and what they don't. And it's not like a take it or leave it, you have to submit to nothing or everything. It's a very black and white thinking. It's not very like wise thinking. It's not very like, I don't know, there's so much of this is very like black and white thinking of like it has to be this way or it has to be this way and nothing else is in between, blah blah blah. Like they're incapable of seeing shades of gray in the world and believing that you can have variation in what you do and have it still be honest and true. Like just because I submit to you in the bedroom does not mean that you automatically get to have authority over what I do with my paychecks or what shoes I wear or how I do my makeup. Like those are all individually negotiated things, because in BDSM, first of all, not everyone wants authority over all of that shit. It's annoying, it's time consuming. It takes away from your relaxation time to micromanage other people. Not everyone wants to have to dictate what other people have to do all the time. So you come together as equals, you negotiate, this is what I want to give up power over, this is what I want to give up power over, I'm not ready for that yet. And you meet somewhere in the middle, you figure out, okay, this is where we're going to start. And over time, as your relationship grows, you might develop more trust, because this is all based on trust. And from what they're implying, if you care about a man, if he treats you well, you just automatically should always submit to him in all things all the time automatically. But even people that have TPE relationships, total power change relationships, that grows over time. You don't generally start there. You start with kind of experimenting, you build up trust, you try more things, you go in further directions, you build on that, you build on that. Like, you lay things out brick by brick. You don't like start with a full building automatically. You have to build it over time, because you're both building it together. You're making it what both of you want it to be. And then if you want a submissive that is not going to question you, you find someone who wants to submit in that way, as opposed to expecting everyone to do that exact thing.
We live in different houses.
Of course.
If I went, he'd never know. Me and my man, because I'm a caregiver. If I went, he would have never known.
Right.
So I still didn't go.
Okay. And?
So what you were saying?
So I'll say to you, okay, babe, you don't want me to go? Why don't you want me to go? Like, what's worrying you? What's the matter? Why would you not want me to go?
But why would I want to question him when he's always got my best interest at heart?
Well, I want to know. I don't know why, because my best interest...
Why should he have to explain everything?
Wait, because you're not a child. You are also an adult.
No, and it's not...
And treating a woman like she doesn't have her own mind is very disrespectful.
It is an acknowledgement.
I'm sorry. Think about it.
The girl in brown has also finally entered the chat. Welcome. Glad you could be here. Glad you could get a word in edgewise there. Did you guys notice, though, this is kind of subtle, that we moved from, oh, I want to ask a question about this very particular choice my partner wants me to make about my possession and the thing that I own that is mine, that belongs to me and my time, to... Why do you have to question everything that he says? Why do you have to question everything that he wants, and does you trust him? Like, no, nobody here is saying that, like, I need to question every single thing that a man does, and that he has to explain himself every single time he does anything. If it doesn't involve me, I don't care. I don't need to know why you had a tuna sandwich for lunch. I don't need to know why you prefer the toilet paper roll to be this way or that way. I don't need to know if you like or why you like pineapple on pizza. I don't need to know any of that. But if you are expecting me to change my behavior about my things that I own that are my possessions, it is fair to ask a question, especially when you have not previously negotiated to have authoritarian control over that area of my life. Now, if it's a habitual, normal, negotiated part of your relationship for your partner to dictate your possessions and what you do with your money and your time, okay, you get to do that, that's you. But if this is a new thing that he randomly exerts control over whenever and if he feels like it, and you haven't talked about that outside of those instances, yeah, you're gonna probably expect a bigger conversation, and for that partner to get to choose if they want to follow those guidelines or not. Because again, just being submissive in the bedroom or getting gifts from somebody does not make you their submissive. Like, it's not like this thing where it's like, oh no, I accepted a gift from a man. He gave me Louboutins. Now I'm his submissive, and if I don't act submissive, I'm violating some kind of biological tenet of life. Like, can you imagine if that was like how submission works? There's fan fiction about this that I'm sure starts with like, if you accept a gift from somebody, you become their submissive. And so like gift giving is like this very taboo thing, and it's like also very erotic. Like, I'm sure that's a thing that happens, but like in real life, that's not how it works. You don't have to give up your own autonomy because somebody else bought you something or bought you dinner. Like, that's honestly what this is. This is the highest level version of because I bought you dinner, you owe me sex. This is that idea dialed up to 11, where it's not even just an individual act, it's now your whole life. You submit to me, you follow what I do. And even when you trust someone, even when you love someone, you're still gonna say no sometimes. You're still gonna wanna know why they're making that choice they're making. That doesn't mean you don't love them or respect them. And framing it like that's how it is just setting someone up for a very one-sided, very controlled relationship.
Right, I'm 26, right?
Yeah.
I've lived my life all by myself. And then I'm in a relationship and this man is telling me I can't go out.
With
no reason.
Girls, let me give you an
Does that make sense? Can I do that to a man and just say, I don't want you to go out?
If I told my man, listen, right, you know, you said you're going such and such. Well, you know what? I don't really think you should go. He'll think about it and he'll say, you really don't want me to go? And I'll say, no, he won't go.
That's a lie.
That's not a lie.
There's no man that's just gonna
nice. If we can do vetoes like that,
baby,
I can veto, you can veto.
Let me ask you girls a question.
Okay, couple things here. One is, yes, of course, like, for the most part, when people like this and like Andrew Tate bring up examples like this, they don't submit to their woman, they don't submit to women in their lives, they don't generally do what they want because they don't think that women are rational enough to make their own freaking choices in life. So of course they just go, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna do what I want. And also in her example, they had a back and forth conversation. There was a really big difference there. He got to say, oh, you really don't want me to go? And then she said yes. And then he thought about it. He was allowed to think and make his own choice and decided to do and agree with what she wanted. But he got to think about it first, which is not what these people are saying they want for women. They just want them to submit because you should be submissive. And if you don't submit everywhere, you are a lying liar who lies. Like, women are not allowed to think in this scenario. That is the difference. In that situation, if he had decided to go anyways, which I think is probably more likely for most of these examples, it would have just been taken as like, oh, well, he knows best, right? He's leader, he knows best, he's going to follow what he wants to do, right? Whereas for a woman, if she decided, no, actually, I don't want to do that, in their worldview, that would be disrespectful, right? That would be her violating his will, essentially.
The reason she decided not to go is because this is obviously not a regular occurrence, right? So he had a reason and she trusts his judgment. Let me give you girls a scenario. Let's imagine I'm with a chick, whatever. She has a concert. I say, I don't want you to go. And she replies like you, why can't I go? And I say, got a bad feeling. Don't go. Now what?
Now I'll be like...
So would you think the woman should just go, I don't give a shit about your stupid feeling and bounce? Or should she trust you?
The reason
There's no reason. There's no reason. I got bad feeling. Got bad feeling.
This is the thing.
That doesn't make sense.
Wait, look at the key.
A bad feeling.
Listen, my sister. This is the key.
This is really funny to me because this is a very clear example of something I've thought a lot about, which is they talk about how women are irrational because of their emotions, because they are led by their feelings and they're subconscious and they're not in control. And oh my God, they're so emotional when they're on their periods. They can't be trusted to make rational choices because they don't know how to think logically. And here Andrew is saying that the relationship should be led by the man's feelings and just his feeling, right? He cannot even articulate what that feeling is or where it comes from or like anything about it. Just, I have a feeling, do what I want because of my feeling. Like, how is that any different than a woman making a choice based off of her feelings in your mind? The only difference is one person here is a man, and that you just think that his feelings are more valid. That's really what it comes down to. And if you have this worldview of like, we have to be logical, if you are saying that someone should just follow you based off of your feeling, you are not living up to what you say people should actually be doing in relationships. I personally think that logic and emotions should be used together. We evolved emotions very, very early on in the creation of human life, right? Like, emotions are a very base thing that we have, and our bodies generally do not exert effort to maintain things that do not serve us and further our survival. Emotions give us important information about things. Fear, anger, happiness, sadness, they help us interpret things about the world that logically we might not be able to just think through by themselves. And so logic and feelings have to go together to make the best possible choices. And if you cannot articulate why you are feeling something and why that feeling should be more important than my feelings, you should not expect anyone's going to blindly follow that. Now, if you are in a DS relationship and you have negotiated for going along with what the dominant wants in this particular area and they cannot explain that deeper than just I have a feeling, you might want to have a deeper conversation about that later, because if you're that out of touch with your own feelings and where they come from and how much they fit the actual situation you're dealing with, like that might cause errors, right? That might cause you to make irrational or incorrect choices if you're not able to fully assess what is going on with your feelings.
When you say, I don't know, I just got a bad feeling. Let me tell you how that is get translated into my head. He cares about me and he's actually thinking about something that potentially could be happening that I'm not aware of. I love him for thinking outside the box. But you've reassured me, you've shown me respect for being able to make my own decision. Yeah, and that's all it takes. That's all a girl wants to hear.
No, but
I'm sorry, you need a logical reason as to why you're going to tell me not to do it.
A feeling is not logical. A feeling is not logical.
What is
guys? The whole point is like you're not. The whole point is a guy doesn't want to explain like every decision he makes.
And I don't.
Men think things through a lot like more than we realize, and so he's already thought about it. He's already made his decision. It's a headache to him when every time he makes a decision he has to explain it to you.
And again, we're going back to this separate argument of like a man shouldn't have to explain everything he thinks and everything that he does and why he does it. Like, again, we're not saying that. We're not talking about that. Different conversation. And yeah, it kind of sucks maybe to have to explain everything that you're doing, which no one is asking you to do. But if it involves them and a decision that you maybe disagree on, you should be able to explain that, especially if you're saying, well, men think things through more than we do, and they think things through more than we think they do. Then if you've thought it through, then you know why you made your decision, and you should be able to say something beyond, oh, I just have a feeling. I don't know, I just don't want you to. I just feel like it. Like, whenever women say, oh, I just feel like it, men like this pounce on it and go, look, women are being irrational. But in this scenario, it's fine and good, and men secretly have other motivations and other things they thought of, but we just don't know about it because it's like a secret alpha male black box of perfect logic that we don't have access to.
If you trust that man and you've been with him as long as Auntie's been with her man, and he says something with the kind of relationship they have and the respect they have for each other, of course she's going to be like, oh, right, well, cool, done. That's trust. And that's trust. And
I wasn't happy.
Of course. And also that's...
Yeah. Because they've been in a relationship for, 30 or 40 years. That was built up over time. I don't know what the beginning of their relationship was like. But yeah, trust is a thing you build up over time. You don't automatically give up control over everything in your life with someone you don't really know, who you've met with twice or you've gone on dates with for like a month. Like, this is something that you develop as a couple as you get to know each other better. Partly because they're probably able to explain choices that they make and where they disagree. If you can have conversations about it, you can understand your partner's logic and go, oh, I see why you thought that. Actually, I thought this. And you can go back and forth and have a shared understanding of why you make certain choices, where you get so in sync with each other over time, you then develop being able to give trust into what that person's choices are and go, okay, I know that they know best. I know that they really care about me and they have my best interest in mind. They know about this more than I do. And you can rely on that in a consistent way over 30 years that you just can't when you've been dating somebody for a month. And so this is something that has to be built. And also, it has to be built consistently, because not every man, I'm sorry to say, is going to make the best choices every single time. And he might have the bluster and the self-serving attitude to believe I should just be listened to blindly and then repeatedly make bad choices even when he has the other person's best interest at heart, assuming that he does. Like, it is possible to both have good intentions and then also make bad choices. So you have to be willing to have that conversation, to build that over time, to get to that point. And you might actually discover that one of you is a better decision maker in the relationship. And here's the thing, right? Sometimes that's not always the dominant partner. The dominant can choose to go, hey, like maybe the dominant person is a very like artistic, free-spirited, they're maybe a big picture idea person, but they're really not good at the details. They might find a submissive partner that is very detail-focused and is very, very good at analyzing things, and it could be a service to that dominant for the submissive to make certain decisions because it allows the dominant to be more free, have more time for meditation, whatever it is that they want to do, right? And it's a service to actually be the decision maker for the dominant, so they don't have to worry about the small things, right? Like, these acts are not inherently dominant or submissive. Again, it's all about intention, all about mindset. The best, healthiest, longest term DS relationships I know of are collaborative experiences. There's a really good book by Raven Caldera. It's called Building the Team, and it is all about cooperative power exchange relationships. And they have a very long-running, high authority transfer, 24/7 MS dynamic. They are the pinnacle of what these people think submission is, and they believe that this is a cooperative experience. So, you don't have to take my word for it. Like, the experts here also agree with this approach, that it is a cooperative process, not just one person dictating to the other in a one-sided manner. You must listen to me. I will make all choices.
That's a really good point about submission, because submission is largely misunderstood. Like, I can tell you a million stories. I've had girls who are like, yeah, you're the man, you're in charge, and yeah, no problem. Yeah, she's cool, and she's cool on the jet, she's cool in Dubai, she's cool in the restaurants, she's cool in the 5-star, she's cool in the Lambo. But the second I say something that she half doesn't like, then she's like, well, you know what? Then she's a feminist, right? So women do this very well. A lot of women flip-flop. Like, if you trust your man and you really want to be with him and you really want to submit to him, there's going to be times you're going to submit in ways you don't like. That's the whole point of it.
All right, so that's like where the clip just suddenly ends. So yeah, taking someone on a trip to Dubai or Abu Dhabi, or taking that, like, giving them a gift or buying them fancy dinners or whatever, or buying them clothes, it is not submissive. We talked about this before, right, Andrew? We talked about this before, right? Pro-doms get gifts all the time, and it doesn't mean that their subs have control over their bodies. It just means that they got a gift. And if you are giving gifts and giving things to people for more than just having a shared experience with them, and also, like, going on a trip with somebody is not an act of submission. And if you think someone agreeing to go on a trip with you is them submitting to you, I don't even know what? Like, you can't do trips as an egalitarian person. You can't go on a trip together or give someone a gift without it being an obligation thing where they have to submit to you. No, like, you can just give someone something because you like them and because it's nice to give people things, because it makes you feel good about yourself to give a gift. Submission is not about obtaining things. It's not about being financially dependent. Submission and financial dependence are two different things. Being someone who is not able to be self-sustaining or whatever is not the same thing as being a submissive. And, if you like giving someone a gift, it should be because you like giving them a gift, not because there's an obligation on the other end of it. And I'm just very like, why does he think that submission is so materialistic, I guess? Like, it's just like, oh, it's because I give you things, you do this for me. Like, no, you can be submissive and never get a gift from anyone for any reason. You can be dominant and love receiving gifts and want tribute, and, It's this very, very bizarre, very twisted version of dominance and submission we're seeing here today. So I think, in summary, what I will say about this is that dominance and submission can be very different between different people. It is developed over time on a basis of trust that gets built up when you can see that they are making choices that are good for both of you. Long term, it's not an automatic overnight thing because of your gender or your position in the relationship. You should give people things because you like to, not because you think it will obligate them to do things back for you. Giving someone a gift is not the same thing as submission, and blind obedience is not the same thing as being a submissive. And you can be a submissive, you can be dominant, regardless of your financial position or your gender or anything else like that. There are many scenarios where the dominant one is actually the one who is receiving gifts, not just the submissive. And yeah, I don't know, just very, very confusing opinions about submission here, that everyone has to be in a 24/7 TPE relationship with no negotiation beforehand in order to be a true submissive. Like, does anyone outside of these chuckleheads think that? I don't think so. I've never met anyone who thinks that, but maybe it's just my bias. I don't know. Honestly. I just really wanted to sit down and kind of break down what it is that they say and how they think about things, because I think it's very easy for people who have maybe more BDSM tendencies or want to find a dominant partner or want to find a submissive partner to go towards this and be led in the completely wrong direction that does not produce results. Like, this does not generally end up with you being able to have a healthy, sustainable, long-term relationship. It generally ends with a lot of unhappiness. And when you can learn about BDSM and learn about, control and dominance as this like earned thing that gets developed over time, and that both parties want equally and participate in equally and negotiate about beforehand, you're going to have a lot more success, I think, with that approach versus like whatever the heck this is. So I'm not really sure if there's anything else I want to add at this point about submission and dominance. And like, obviously, like, I don't believe in misogyny. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think that any gender is better than any other gender. I don't think there's anything biologically that makes it so you have to be the submissive one or the dominant one. I think you get to be whatever is the most fun for you and what you and your partner like doing that brings you happiness, enjoying your relationship, and that communication is always going to be a better tool than just blind obedience. And like, I know from some other videos I've seen that Andrew has been in, he generally is a rod first person rather than the carrot, let's say. And he is not afraid to use physical force and fear to manipulate somebody into compliance, and that also is not sustainable or good long term. You can do things like consensual behavior modification. You can do things that involve rewards and motivating people with what they are motivated by, not just fear. And generally, the kind of approach to being a dominant person that people like Andrew espouse lead to you basically being like a despotic terrorist in your own home, because you have to control everyone financially and with fear and fear of being physically beaten, fear of being kicked out, fear of like what could happen to you because of this person. Because the way that Andrew comes across in these videos when he talks about, feelings and wanting respect is that he is a very emotional person that holds on to grudges, that doesn't know how to let go of things, that does not think, like, they correlate emotional suppression with being emotionally well, and they're not the same thing. They're not like, if you have a healthy relationship with your emotions, you can sit and think about them and let them go, as opposed to holding on to them for years because one time your girlfriend went to a concert when you told her not to because of your irrational fears about terrorism. Like, why should you get to be the emotional despot in the relationship? You should just be more in touch with yourself and be able to analyze your feelings rationally and not take everything as like a dig at you personally, and just like having a whole relationship revolved around not having your insecurities poked, right? Because if you're like, well, you just have to be questioned about everything, you just have to be questioned about all his decisions. Well, if he's not able to handle being asked a question, then it's probably because he feels insecure about being questioned about why it is that he wants to do things. And maybe you should resolve that before you decide you want to control another being's entire life. But that's me. I really know what you all think in a comment down below. And this is kind of a different one for me, but I really do feel like maybe somebody with actual BDSM experience in, maybe not TP relationships, but like collared, very long-term, very committed BDSM relationships and being in this lifestyle for as long as I have been. I feel like we need to also comment about this because of how our terminology is being appropriated and how our terminology is being used in a negative way that I think is very counter to the values of BDSM. So that's my thoughts. Those are my feelings about it, and I would love to know your thoughts and your feelings down below. And let me know if you guys want to see more videos like this, any suggestions for me to react to or respond to. I'd love to know. If you have not already and you would like to, please do subscribe because I make videos twice a week about all sorts of kink and BDSM related topics. And finally, if you really enjoyed this, if you want to support what I do, the best way you can do that is with Patreon. A link to that will be down below. Thank you all so very much if you do already support over there. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.